Hey, what's going on, everybody? It is me, Ben, and welcome to Have At It, episode 110. My name is Ben Cornett, and you're watching this live on YouTube, on my YouTube channel, Ben Cornett 9015, as well as on Facebook in the Ben Zone group. How is everybody doing tonight? And I'll start off by saying Happy New Year and hello 2026. I hope everybody had a great holiday and hope everybody rang in the new year, you know, just fine, like I did. Real quick for New Year's Eve, when you're, you know, in your mid 40s, you're not going anywhere. I stayed home. I watched the series finale of Stranger Things, which I thought was really good. And then I just barely made it to midnight here in Vegas, and then saw the fireworks for like a couple minutes, and then went to bed. Um, Surprised I made it that far, but hey, at my age, I'll pat myself on the back for that. So yeah. But anyway, we are here in 2026, and as we all know, this weekend, starting tomorrow, Saturday, two NFL games that have a lot of intrigue and a lot of stakes. We all know my Buccaneers are playing the Carolina Panthers in the first game of the doubleheader at 4:30 p.m. Eastern, 1:30 Pacific. It, and it's in Tampa. It's for the NFC South title. Well, at least for Carolina now. The Bucks. This is a very unique situation because right now the Buccaneers, even if they win tomorrow, um, can't clinch the NFC South yet. The reason that is because the Bucks would end up 8-9, Carolina would end up 8-9, but the Saints play the Falcons Sunday, and if the Falcons beat the Saints, they will be 8-9 as well. So now you have three teams that are all 8-9, and the tiebreaker would go to the Carolina Panthers because they have the best division. They have the best record as far as division play goes. So now, if Carolina wins, you throw that all out the window. They win the division outright. But if the Bucks win, then they have to wait to see what happens on Sunday between the Saints and Falcons. Now, they have to hope the Saints win if the Bucks do win tomorrow. Um, you know, I know a lot of people are going to say we need to root for the Saints. I don't root for anybody. I'm not rooting for anybody. Doesn't matter. If the Saints win, whatever. The Saints lose, whatever. You know, the Bucks, all they need to do right now is just win tomorrow. And then after that, you just wait and see what happens, you know. But this idea of rooting for another team, I'm not doing that. You can do what you want, but I'm not doing that. The Bucks put themselves in this position. They've only won one game since their bye week. Yeah, one game. It's terrible. And you know, right before the bye week, we were 6-2, one of the top teams in the NFC, and then we just totally collapsed. Now I did a video of the last episode. It wasn't a have at it episode. It was more, I guess, in a way it was, but it wasn't officially a have at it. But I had at it with how I felt. Um, Tomorrow's even if we do win and somehow sneak into the postseason, what makes you think this team is going to do anything in the postseason? I don't see any evidence of that because we're going to play either the Seattle Seahawks or the San Francisco 49ers, which, by the way, we beat both of them in the regular season. But right now, you know, the three teams are going in opposite directions. The Bucks are going in one direction, Seattle and San Fran are going in another direction. And even if we do win and, you know, get in the postseason, I don't see either Seattle or San Francisco losing to us. I think both those teams will beat us. They're getting better defensively, healthy at the right time. The Bucks complete opposite. They have a lot of health issues. Jamel Dean's already been listed out, for the game tomorrow. There's a chance Cansey might come back and play, which, you know, kind of worries you in a way. Is he going to be 100% ready? and nobody's going to be 100% when they just get back. It's been months since Kalijah Cansey's played. Will it help? Anything at this point could help, but I'm not expecting, a 2-3 sack game from him. Be nice. Would love to see it, but the current state of the Bucks right now, seeing what they've done the last couple months really doesn't tell me that they're going to do anything to get the Bryce Young. Um, you know, they haven't been able to tackle in the open field. Uh, meanwhile, our offensive line keeps getting switched around with all the injuries and everything. Baker Mayfield's playing hurt. He was on the injury report again this week for the first time in a while. So, this is going to be a game where I expect it to be a low scoring game, to be honest with you. I think it's going to be ugly. I do think the Bucks will win this game. I know that's going out on a limb considering what I've seen the last couple months and predicting that the Bucks would win, having maybe way too much confidence in the team. God forbid that this, with a lot of talent on our team, we should be able to win these games. But call me an idiot, but I'm going to go with the Bucks again. I think they will win. Maybe more because I don't believe in Carolina as much. They're not a very good road team. I think they've only won maybe 2 road games all year, if I'm not mistaken. So, I think this is just more my predictions based more on Carolina having a hard time winning on the road than anything else. I think it'll be I could see like a 24-20 type of score. That's what I could see. And the Bucks pulling it out, squeaking by. And then I could see the Falcons beating the Saints on Sunday, and then that would just be all for nothing, and the Bucks season will win. That's my prediction. Hope I'm wrong on the latter, but again, the Bucks put themselves in this position. And they got to fight like hell tomorrow to get this win. Division games are tough, and I know Carolina will be ready. I just, even if I wasn't a fan of the Bucks, I'd probably still pick them to beat Carolina because again, Carolina's not a good road team, in my opinion. So, with that being said, we do got a couple of comments. Let me get to those real quick. Marty, thanks for tuning in, Marty. How you doing tonight? Says I agree. We should have took care of business weeks ago. Yep. Yes, we should have. If we would have won 2 of those games, the Saints and Falcons, we'd already be in the playoffs. So we also got to prepare for the fact that tomorrow could be Mike Evans' last game with the Bucks. Yeah, I mean, you never know. It's one of those things where I see him coming back. I think I could see him coming back for one more year. Especially with Baker Mayfield under contract for another year. I could see it. But then after that, who knows? Win or lose, who knows what'll happen. Because I don't, Mike doesn't want to go out potentially without making the playoffs. He missed a lot of games this year with the injury. It's just real unfortunate. It started out with the hamstring, and then his first game back on Monday night against Detroit, hurts his collarbone, and had to miss like 5 or 6 games. It robbed him of a chance to get his 12th 11,000-yard season that would have broke the record, held by Jerry Rice with 11. He's tied with Jerry Rice with 11 straight 1,000-yard seasons. So, and that's a shame because I'm sure he would have got it. It's just bad luck, the injuries. But Marty, I could tell you right now that with the injury history that Evans has had recently over the past few years, I can't rule it out about him, being his last game, and then the fact that he's also a free agent too, So, if he wants to come back, does he come back with the Bucks, or because when he can still play. Mike Evans can play, maybe not like he used to, a few years ago, but the guy can still be a threat in any offense. He really can be. Um, he's just one of those, what do they call like bikers, like biker gangs, like 1%. I'm not saying, I'm not trying to be insulting or anything, but he's that 1%. You know, he's a rare breed. And you're not going to find many Mike Evans, you know, the next few years. He's just a special player, a future Hall of Famer. So, I still think he could play at a high level, but it's just up to him. It's up to him to if he wants to come back to and play and wants to come back to the Bucks. I think he'll if he does come back to play, it's going to be with the Bucks. They're going to do everything they can. We have to sort of keep in mind that Jason Light, the GM of the Bucks, and we'll talk about him in a little bit, but Mike was his first draft pick, and that holds a lot of weight, no matter what. And you just look at players differently when that's your first draft pick, So I'm sure Jason Light's going to do everything he can to try and convince him to come back, resign him, give him like the Levante deal, where he comes back year after year, on 1-year deals. Speaking of Levante, I would say if I had to bet who would not be back next year, it'd probably be more Levante because he's a little older, and defensively I hate to say it, but he's lost a step. You're seeing it out there, missing tackles in the open field. Just doesn't have the speed like he used to. He's not playing bad. It's just one of those things where father time is hitting that certain part of the clock. And for Levante, I mean, he's just been phenomenal. He's an original Buck, and it's going to be sad when he, eventually rides off into the sunset and retires. He's one of the all-time great Bucks. Let's face it. I mean, he's just been from day one. He's been phenomenal. You just don't find those kind of players anywhere. I mean, and he could have gone anywhere. After he had contracts, then he could have went anywhere else, but he decided to stick it out with the Bucks, and he got rewarded, with the Super Bowl. So yeah, it's going to be one of those days where it's going to be truly sad that when that time comes, whether it's this year or the year after or whatever, but for both these guys, I mean, they're always going to be, in my book, top 5, top 10 Buccaneers of all time. So Marty says I could see him signing a 1-year deal with the Texans to play in his home state. Yeah, I mean, there was talk that was the other team before he signed back with the Bucks a couple years ago. That was there. From what I heard, he was talking to 2 teams, and I believe the Texans were the other team that he was talking to. I mean, he's from I believe Galveston, Texas, so it's sort of near Houston, so it makes a lot of sense. But as we all know, his wife told him, we're staying here. So, hey, listen to the wife, happy wife, happy life. So, it's just been unfortunate that he's had a lot of injuries lately. But I don't know. We'll see how it plays out. Again, there's going to be a lot of decisions that need to be made in this off season. We all know, the hot topic here is, head coach Todd Bowles. Is he going to go? Is he going to, I know a lot of fans want him fired. They want him out of here. A lot of fans are even rooting for a loss, so that way they can end this misery and, end the tenure of Todd Bowles. Honestly, I mean, you know, not all of it's on Todd. Some of it is, the defense has regressed. Uh, but at the same time, the offense hasn't done much better. And, you know, Baker's been struggling, injuries or not. He's had some bad interceptions. Um, Bucky Irving hasn't played well. He hasn't ran the ball very well. So there's a lot of decisions that need to be made. Now, Todd did sign that extension this past season. So, you know, do the Glazers want to pay a coach, fire a coach, and then have to pay that former coach the next 3 or 4 years? They've done it before. So it's not like they would be doing this for the first time, because they did it with John Gruden in 2008, where he signed an extension, then they still let him go after that disastrous, ending to the 2008 season, where they went 9-3 and then they lost their last 4 games in a row and missed the playoffs. So it's not unprecedented. Same with Raheem Morris in 2011. Where he lost after 4-2. They went to London, lost 9 straight after that London loss, lost 10 in a row. That ended his tenure. So, and then Raheem still had like a couple of years left on his contract. So it's not unprecedented, and the Bucks could do that. So we'll see how it plays out, but you do have to ask yourself, like, who are you going to get? Because there's really not that many options out there. I know people are talking about a Clint Kubiak and Seattle, the old DOC for the Seahawks. Joe Brady with the Buffalo Bills. OC. So but do they really stand out to you? I mean, I've heard stories that Clint Kubiak's not really much of a vocal guy. So you kind of do need that guy type of personality, especially with a team like this, to get them motivated. Because right now, I don't see it. I see a team that a lot of these players are not really motivated. So you're going to need somebody to get them motivated. Does Clint Kubiak qualify as that guy? Great offensive mind, but it needs to be more than that when you're a head coach. It's a different type of coaching style. So I don't know. We'll see. Marty says a topic that the Buccaneers fans don't like to talk about is Vita going into his last year of his current deal. Next season, does he get an extension? I think he does. I mean, again, the one thing about Jason Light, and I will get to him in a moment, but another draft pick, of Light's. I don't think he's gonna let him just go explore free agency. I think, he's gonna give him a good deal. And I think Vita wants to be here. So, he sees what, Levante's done, Mike Evans has done, Chris Godwin. I think he ends up back here. I think they'll do everything they can. Jason Light, Mike Greenberg will do everything they can to keep him in Tampa. So there's Blackie. Ben. Hey, Blackie, how you doing tonight? Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching. Appreciate it. And Blackie says, Ben Cornett, you're the next head coach of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That's a nice thought, but I don't think so. But I'll tell you this. They're going to, if Todd does go, I mean, you're going to have to find somebody that, who's that guy going to be? It's going to be interesting because, again, the coaching cycle this year, not really as great as it was last year. Again, if somehow Bulls wins the division and they still make the playoffs, you got to wonder. Maybe he sticks around for another year. Because again, he's won the division. It's hard to let a guy go when he's won 4 straight divisions. And I get it. would I be heartbroken if Todd's no longer the head coach? No. Would I be happy about it? No, not necessarily. But I get why, you know. But it's easier to fire one guy than to fire 5 or 6 people that aren't motivated, that are tuning out the head coach. Now, again, I'm not saying they are, but it just looks like it, that this team's lifeless and is, not. It doesn't seem like they're playing as some players are not playing as hard for the team as they should be, in my opinion. That's all. Um, Whether that results in a coaching change or not, we shall see. But again, if it's an issue with players tuning out their head coach, then that's not good for Todd Bowles. Because again, like I said just a minute ago, it's easier to let the head coach go than to let the players, supposedly, that are tuning out their head coach, especially if those players have like big salaries, because they're not going to fire the uh, players. It's usually the head coach that gets, the axe. So again, we'll see how it plays out. Marty says, and almost a guarantee we'll probably be getting a new OC again. Well, I don't know, because I don't think Josh Grizzard's going to get any calls from other teams to be the head for an interview, because he hasn't done very well in his first year. Now, granted, it's his first year calling plays, but let's be realistic here. Hasn't been great, especially the last couple months. And albeit he's had some stuff against him, the injuries. He hasn't had a full roster of all his offensive players to, scheme for. It can be tough. But, if Todd Bowles is back, more than likely they'll probably keep Grizzard another year. Maybe they'll make changes. I don't know. You know, um, but I can tell you right now, he's not going to get any phone calls for any interviews. So not like Liam Cohen did or Dave Canales, who both got head coaching jobs. Who've both, Jacksonville's already clinched a playoff spot. Carolina could do that this weekend. So, and good for them. I mean, I didn't expect it this soon, but it's the NFL. You just never know, and we'll see how it plays out. Blackie, did you see my Northwestern Wildcats hired Chip Kelly as the OC? Is he bringing in his old staff, including Heisel, as our quarterback coach? I saw it. Well, I don't know. I guess. I mean, I'm not against it as long as he's not the head coach. I mean, if he's the OC, okay. The NFL, he's with the Raiders. They fired him a month ago. I think he's better off in college. The NFL, no. And watching the Raiders offense this year, yeah, you could tell why he's not cut out for the NFL. And Rick Neuheisel's son going to join his staff, so that's good. That's good for Northwestern. Maybe they'll finally be, a team, and they're on the up and up. They had a good year this year, so we'll see how they do in the recruiting and the portal. It should be fun. But yeah, speaking of college football, we had the playoff games Wednesday and Thursday. Miami beat Ohio State 24-14. Oregon beat Texas Tech 23-0, which really, really surprised me because, I mean, I picked Oregon to win, but I didn't think they'd shut out the Texas Tech Red Raiders. I didn't think they could, that was a big win. And then we saw that Indiana just smoked Alabama. I mean, the first half was a little close, but then, the second half, it was all Indiana. Ty Simpson got hurt, but it didn't matter. I mean, Indiana would have ran away with that anyway. So, um, and Indiana looks like the team to beat, and then they're going to play Oregon in uh, it's the Peach Bowl, I think. It's the semifinals. So, and then last night, probably the game of the night of the best game of the quarterfinals was um, uh, Old Miss and Georgia. Old Miss ended up winning that game. Um, and what a game that was. Trinidad Chambliss played well. Uh, you know, Gunnar Stockton played pretty good as well, but just wasn't enough. Um, but congrats to Old Miss. And, now they're going to play Miami, a team that, speaking of Tampa Bay Rays fan, thanks for tuning in, watching on YouTube. The edge rushers, yeah, Ruben Bain. Man, that those guys will be playing on Sundays, no doubt about it. And I think Miami's going to beat Ole Miss. I just think defensively they're really good. Carson Beck's playing good right now at the quarterback position. Mitchell's running the ball very well for Miami. I just think they're a little more talented on both sides of the ball than Ole Miss. And plus, Ole Miss, they've been through a lot. Lane Kiffin left, went to LSU, and now it's rumored that, well, we know today's the portal opened up. So, he's going to be, it's going to be interesting because Lane wants, it's been reported, he wants his guys to start coming back to LSU, which Charlie Weiss Jr., the offensive coordinator. Meanwhile, they got to prepare for a game against Miami in the semifinals. So, how's that going to work? I think the distractions are probably going to get the best of them, but I also think Miami's the better team. So I'm going with Miami over Ole Miss, and I'm going to go as much as I want Oregon to win this game because I got a friend out there, Alex Schomber, big Oregon Ducks fan. I want him to finally be happy. I want him to see a championship. And I want this for him. I think it'd be cool to see Oregon finally win a national title. But I got to use my head here, and I got to go with Indiana. I think just a better team right now. And I know Indiana's already beat Oregon earlier this year. So it should be a good rematch. But I just didn't think Indiana's too good on both sides of the ball. Fernando Mendoza's outstanding. Their running game's great. Their defense is spectacular. Oregon, yeah, they shut out Texas Tech, but I felt like Texas Tech beat themselves. They had a bunch of turnovers, careless turnovers, especially by their quarterback. I think that's a mirage. Oregon's not going to do that again. I think Indiana's going to win a close game. But again, I'm rooting for Oregon, for my friend Alex Schomber out there. Hopefully he gets that championship and he can stop being so negative. But we'll see. Tampa says, is Chambliss coming out next year or does he have another year? I think he has another year. I think he does, if I'm not mistaken. Marty says, for him to finally have a championship like Notre Dame. Yeah. Yeah. Let's see what happens. Should be good. Tampa Bay Rays. We'll go back to the Bucks here. If Bulls is kept, don't be surprised if Grisar is back next season and McGauchi has to go. Special teams coaches are easier to replace than the OC. Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, Thomas McGauchi's got to go anyway. Tampa Bay Rays fan. He has to go. I mean, he should have been fired several weeks ago. I mean, the Rams did it with their OC. Why couldn't the Bucks do that? So if Bowles is back, I mean, he's going to have to make changes. He's probably going to, the front office is going to talk to him about making those changes. And I'll even go further here. I think Todd should give up defensive play calling duties. He needs to hire a defensive coordinator. I think he should just be a head coach. Just oversee everything. I think being the head coach, calling the defensive plays, it's not working for him. it might be working for other head coaches right now, but it's not working for him. Maybe if he, hands the reins off to somebody else, maybe that'll lighten the load a little bit and he could just be a head coach. You know, give his new coaches a chance to, try and help this team win and develop their, players. Now, honestly, I don't see Todd Bowles doing that. I think he wants to call plays. He doesn't like to, have somebody else call his plays, But I think that's what he should do, in my opinion. Marty says his game is just outdated. You can't have a 3-4 defense with most defenses in the NFL that's as successful as a 4-3. I still think the 3-4 works. Some teams, good teams still use the 3-4, Marty. The problem with the Bucks right now is, when you don't have Kalijah Kancey out there, he's been injured most of the year. Logan Hall is a rotational player at best. It could still work. It's just right now the players we have, it's just not working enough. It's not working very well. The linebacker, Levante's older. Servassier Dennis is okay. He has good games. He has bad games. He's consistently inconsistent. So, Diaby's good. But right now, the players that they have are not consistent enough, and they're not always healthy. So, and that's one of the criticisms about Jason Licht. He's hasn't gotten it right with the defensive ends, and that's something I think Light's done a really good job. It's just he hasn't hit on the defensive ends he's drafted. Why do you think Joe Tryon Shank is gone? Now he's in Chicago. Again, Logan Hall, guys like that, haven't reached their full potential. Kancey can if he can stay healthy, but we all know the old saying by Bill Parcells: your best ability is your availability, and Kalijah's missed the last 2 seasons, so he just hasn't been able to hit on those picks, and they haven't developed like he thought they would. Diaby's done good. Servassier Dennis is okay. Anthony Nelson's he's a utility guy. He's a rotational linebacker, but that's the problem. Is more he hasn't really hit on those draft picks and the injuries. And you got Levante, who's an older player now. That's hurt as well. So, I don't think it's so much the scheme is outdated. It's just that the players we have right now haven't consistently ran that scheme very well, in my opinion. So if Bowles gives up the defense coordinator hat, might as well give it to Larry Foote. I mean, I would give it a try. I think it could help him. Maybe I'm wrong, but I just think you got to do something. You got to do something to show that you're willing to adjust and find ways to make this team better and maybe not put so much on your plate. Again, some head coaches, they still like to call plays and it's worked for them. It's working for Mike Vrabel or Sean McVay, but it doesn't work for everybody. And so far, it's not worked for Todd Bowles, at least this year. So maybe he needs to change. His defense, okay, I already read that one. I wonder if it's a wise move to go after Max Crosby this offseason. Why not? I mean, I'm not against it at all. I think it'd be great. But I'm going to I'll tell you this right now, Marty. Anybody who's listening, I live here in Las Vegas. Max Crosby doesn't want to leave. He wants to be a Raider. And I just I don't think we're gonna land him. And with Jason Light, you're gonna have to give up picks. And that's something that if there's one criticism about Jason Light, he values his draft picks too much. Sometimes, like this year would have been the perfect year to go out and get a defensive end, like a Crosby or a Trey Hendrickson. Well, now I'm glad they didn't go after Hendrickson because he's been hurt. But but again, we don't know. I mean, maybe Jason tried to. Maybe he gave the Raiders a call and he just didn't listen. But you know, I mean, Crosby doesn't want to leave. It's kind of like how do I say? It's kind of like the Larry Fitzgerald situation. He just wants to stay with one team. He loves being here in Vegas, and he wants, win or lose, he wants to be here. And it's, but if I'm Max, if he wants to compete for a championship, he's got to leave. You're not going to do it here in Vegas. You're just not. The organization's a mess. Yeah, I know they got Tom Brady here, but so what? He's off and on. He's wearing too many hats. He's not fully committed, in my opinion. He's got the part ownership with the Birmingham City Soccer Club in Birmingham, England, in the Championship League. So he's wearing too many hats. And my rule of thumb is if you're wearing too many hats, then you're never gonna have success, in every hat you wear. So the Raiders, I mean, it's just a mess. He needs to leave. If he wants to win, he has to leave. He's not going to do it with the Raiders because I don't expect the Raiders to be any good anytime. I mean, you got a 74-year-old head coach and Pete Carroll. You thought this guy could revive the franchise. No, didn't work. You brought in Geno Smith. That hasn't worked. It's been a disaster. Seattle was like, oh, okay, good. We're not good. Go ahead, Geno. We'll go get Sam Darnold. And look what happened. They're playing for the number one seed in the NFC tomorrow night. So, it just shows you how bad the Raiders are as a franchise. So, but I just don't see Max Crosby. I don't think he wants to leave. And I think he'll do everything he can to shoot down every offer. It's unfortunate for him from a professional level. I admire his loyalty to the Raiders, but I just don't see it happening. I mean, it would, even if Jason gave him a great offer, like two first round picks, Max would probably just be like, nah. He wants to do it with the Raiders, so it's going to be very difficult to pry him away from the Raiders. He just likes it there too much, in my opinion. Tampa Bay Ray fan. Dennis is an odd way getting stranded and gets a bad shake because Lavante's been ghost and has gotten a pass. Father time is coming. Yeah, and it's really unfortunate because I love Lavonte, but let's be real. He's slower. He gets off the play slower. Gets beaten in the middle of the field. I remember when Lavonte, you couldn't run past him. Running backs run past him now with ease. It's just unfortunate, but his age is showing. And yeah, it could affect Gervasi a little bit. No doubt about it. I mean, it's going to have an effect on him with his play, but they got to, in the draft, they better go after linebackers. And there's a pretty decent crop of linebackers, coming out of college this year. I'll have to look them up because I don't remember the names, but from what I saw, few days ago when I was looking up, potential players coming out, there's a decent amount of solid linebackers coming out. So we'll see. Hendrickson or trade for Brian Burns are the best options if Crosby isn't moved. Burns wouldn't be bad either. Hendrickson, I don't know. I get it. He's from Florida, but he's getting up there in age as well. I'm not. I'd be hesitant with Trey Hendrickson right now. Brian Burns, I'd be okay with. A little younger, he's like 27, 28. I could be good with him, but do the Giants want to give him up? Because they're probably going to give up on Kayvon Thibodeaux. They got, Dexter Lawrence there as well. I mean, it's going to take a lot. I don't see the Giants moving him, at least not right now. But you never know. We'll see. I mean, Jason Light traded with the Giants before. I mean, it was a different GM, Gettleman, Dave Gettleman. So did I say it right? Dave Gettleman? Yeah. We got Jason Pierre-Paul, who, by the way, is back on this team. Hasn't played bad. Looks like he's in great shape, but you can't rely on JPP, next year. I don't think he's coming back anyway, but who knows? We made a trade with the Giants before and it worked out. So who knows? Marty says, I feel like if we upgrade our defense end, we got to make a trade. I don't believe going out and signing Trey Hendrickson to a big deal is a smart move with his age and his injury history. So Jason Light's going to have to part from some of his draft picks if he wants to upgrade the defense. And I do agree. I mean, if Jason Light thinks his team can win a Super Bowl, he needs to upgrade. He needs to get a defensive end, an experienced one. Hendrickson, again, I'm a little hesitant because of the injuries recently. And I mean, if I had to pick between him and Brian Burns, I'd go with Brian Burns. I'm sorry. I would. And plus, I think Burns would be a better fit for this scheme, the 3-4, because he still is pretty fast off the edge. He's great in pass defense. Run defense a little shaky, but I'd take Burns over Hendrickson. And if Max Crosby's available, I'd take Max over both those guys. Crosby is like Garrett in Cleveland. Yeah, pretty much. But I think with Myles Garrett, it's more about the money. Trust me, if Cleveland didn't give him that sweetheart deal, that huge money, he wouldn't be there. That's all he wanted. He wanted to get a big payday. At least with Max Crosby, he loves being a Raider. He was a Raider fan growing up. So, Myles Garrett, he's great. Don't get me wrong. I mean, he's going to attempt to go for the sack record this weekend against Cincinnati. Great player, but I think he's more motivated by the paychecks than anything else. Otherwise he wouldn't have re-signed with Cleveland, in my opinion, because Cleveland, that's another dumpster fire up there in Ohio. So same with the Raiders, but at least with the Max, he loves being a Raider. Myles Garrett doesn't love the Browns. He loves the money they give him. So that's the difference. Yeah, so I mean, we got a lot of games this weekend. Again, the Niners, Seahawks, that's for the number 1 seed in the NFC. The loser of that game will be the 5th seed. I think, yeah, they would be the 5th seed. And if the Bucks win the division, make the playoffs, that's who they would face the loser of that game. And I like the team that's going to go up against the Bucks if that happens. Because again, Tampa Bay hasn't shown me anything that they can get on a roll. And they're probably going to beat Carolina tomorrow. So Carolina's not great either. I like Biles' game from Pitt, the inside linebacker, the bowl game. He had led the defense in tackles in the Military Bowl. Okay, I'll check Biles out. Yeah, but the linebacker position we gotta really upgrade. Probably should have done that. Well, we kind of did with Servassier Dennis, but we need more inside linebackers. Need depth. Yeah, so again, a lot of a couple games with a lot of playoff implications, including Sunday night, the Ravens against the Steelers. Now the Steelers had a chance to wrap it up last week, but then they lost to Cleveland. And the Ravens won in Green Bay. So now it's a winner take all. Now the Steelers can win. If they win or tie against the Ravens, they win the division. But if Baltimore wins, then they win the division. And I'm going to be honest with you. I shouldn't be doing this, but I am rooting for the Ravens to win that game. I want Aaron Rodgers done out of the NFL. He needs to retire. I mean, he's not the savior. He's not gonna take Pittsburgh to a Super Bowl. He's not that guy. He needs to go. And Mike Tomlin, you want to talk about a guy who's overstayed his welcome. I think he's got to go too. I mean, but it's the original Rooney Rule. As long as you have a 500 or better record, they don't. Ever since the Rooneys owned the Steelers, they've only had 3 head coaches. So, might as well make Tomlin the head coach for another 5 to 10 years because he ain't going nowhere. So, but yeah, I just want Aaron Rodgers out of the league. I know I don't like him, but yeah, and I think Baltimore, starting to get it back going again now. Lamar Jackson, see how healthy he is. Didn't play the last game with the back injury. Tyler Huntley stepped in, did a good job, but they're going to need Lamar. They're going to need Derrick Henry, who finally didn't have a turnover. He held on to the football against the Packers last Saturday night. So I do like the Ravens in this game. I think they're going to beat the Steelers. And I want to see that disappointing look on Aaron Rodgers' face as they lose Sunday night. That's my hope. So I know I shouldn't be doing that. I need to be unbiased, but I just can't. Marty, next year's Cleveland Browns quarterback room is going to be so fascinating to watch. You got Sean South Park Tal versus Dion's little boy. Yeah. Yeah, I know. Again, it's the dumpster fire. I mean, and I hear Bucks fans complaining how bad it is right now. Well, come on. You don't have it nearly as bad as the Browns or the Jets. You'll be okay. Touch some grass. Tampa Bay Racemen, they need depth at inside linebacker. Yeah. I think you're talking about the Steelers. Yeah. And that supposedly TJ Watt's going to be a go for that game. So, but I don't think it'll make a difference. I think the Ravens will win that game. Oh man. Yeah, so those are the games. Everything else is just window dressing on Sunday. I mean, a lot of insignificant games. I mean, everybody's already clinched playoff berth. With seeding, I guess the Patriots and the Broncos, I mean, there's still a chance one of those two teams will get the number 1 seed. Also, if you're a Bills fan, it's going to be the last regular season game at High Park Stadium. They're going to be moving in their new stadium next year, um, so you're a Bills fan, you want to see that. Other than that, there's just I don't know. I'll just probably just watch the red zone on Sunday. You know, now if the Bucks win, yeah, I'll be checking in on the Falcons. I guess. Listen, whatever happens, happens. That's how I look at this whole thing. Whatever happens with the Bucks, whether we win or lose, I'm just gonna be I'm gonna be fine. I'm gonna be fine with it. Either way. Yeah, I'll be disappointed if they don't make the playoffs, but it is what it is. I'm not gonna, lose it or be upset or anything like that. We put ourselves in this position, and if we lose, oh well. We had our chances. We blew it. If we win, get in the playoffs, that's fine. But I don't expect this team to win a game in the postseason. So we'll just see what happens. Did you catch the White Sox sign a Japanese first baseman? The Astros sign Japanese right-hand pitcher. Dodgers must be jealous they didn't get first dibs. No, I'm not. We're not jealous. The Astros and the White Sox are just following the blueprint. But the difference is, we're deferring our money. We're deferring their money to we're doing the Bobby Bonilla thing, So that's fine. We've won 2 straight World Series. So it's worked. But we've also had a very good farm system. Andrew Friedman's done a great job as the general manager. The Dodgers are committed to winning, and it shows. You got to spend money in baseball. There's no salary cap, so you got no choice but to spend money. Dodgers, I know they're in a big market. They have the second biggest market in the country next to New York, but they're willing to spend. They're willing to go out, all over the world to find talent, and they make it work. So if it works for the White Sox and the Astros, great. We'll see how it goes. 3 World Series in 2020s for LA, yeah. It's been an incredible run the last 6 years. I love it, and I'm a Dodger fan, so I love seeing it. But we've earned it. We've spent the money. We've developed very well in our farm system. We've been able to get solid free agents. We're committed to winning. That's the key. Now, do I think we can three-peat? I think so, but you just never know in baseball. I mean, this team is getting a little older. Mookie's getting a little older. Muncie's getting older. Freddie, a little older. Otani's in his prime. Yamamoto's in his prime. And yes, we did sign Edwin Diaz. I like the signing because our bullpen needs help. Our bullpen needs help. That was one of our weaknesses last year. We got away with it. Doesn't mean we're going to get away with it again this year. So I like what the Dodgers did. Got a certified, closer in Edwin Diaz. Now I could breathe a little bit. As long as he stays healthy, he can be a little erratic at times, but I love it. And Sasaki is also on. Yeah, Sasaki. I think now you could put him in middle relief. He could be the setup guy for Edwin Diaz. So with our starting pitching, with Sasaki in there, middle relief, setup guy for Edwin Diaz. I think it's going to, and they stay healthy. That's going to be a very good combination in our pitching staff. And I'm excited about that, and we would have a chance to maybe three-peat. Now, I'm not going to say we are, winning back-to-back World Series is absolutely incredible. It hadn't been done since the Yankees did it in the early 2000s. You know, it's an incredible feat. So I am just, ecstatic that we were able to. And Toronto gave us they gave us a battle. You got to give them credit. You know, maybe we'll see them again next year in the World Series. So again, I like the Diaz signing, but again, I'm not going to get ahead. I'm not going to say we're going to repeat because that's so hard. It's so hard to repeat. But the repeat is going to be a very tough battle, tough hill to climb, but hopefully we can do it. They also have Glasnow and Snell, former Rays starters. Well, yeah, again, Andrew Friedman, former Rays GM. Glasnow, he's got to stay healthy. That's the problem. He's never been able to stay healthy. I call him Tyler Glasnow. Glass. It's always made of glass because he breaks. I know it's not funny, but he's always hurt. He's got to stay healthy. Dustin May's got to stay healthy as well. It just sucks if we can just have a healthy pitching staff because Clayton's retired now. Can't go to him anymore. And Yamamoto's our ace now. He's our number one. So, we'll see how it turns out. Marty, somewhere Johnny's watching a flipping a table because we're talking baseball. I don't know if he's watching or not. Maybe he is. Hopefully he is. He's whatever he's doing. Dust himself off and make another YouTube video with his dogs. God bless him. If I can live to be a couple hundred years old, I take that back. I don't think I'd want to, but if it works for Johnny, good for him. So, oh man, well, that's pretty much all I have for tonight. I want to thank you guys for tuning in. Appreciate the support. Like I said, you're watching this on YouTube at Ben Cornett 9015. And on Facebook in the Ben Zone. Appreciate you guys watching tonight. Happy New Year. Welcome 2026. Hopefully, for me personally, I hope 2026 is better than 2025. Just a lot of personal crap last year. Didn't make it a great year, but at least the Dodgers won the World Series, so I'll take that. And got one more comment. Tampa Bay Rays fan, are you catching the junior hockey's tournament? That's actually exciting. I have not. The only hockey I really watch, or Tampa Bay Rays fan, sorry, it's the Golden Knights who lost again today. We've lost 3 in a row now. We lost to St. Louis 4-3. Been struggling lately, but I'll check it out. I'll see what's going on. I believe you and you say it's exciting, and a lot of talent there. Can't wait. The U.S. named their team for the Olympics. Jack Eichel's on the team, so that's good. It should be a fun Winter Olympics with the hockey. I'll definitely watch that. Canada's going to have a great team, probably the favorites to win it again. USA, hopefully we can medal. We've got some players on that team, so we'll see how it works out. And a lot of draft picks playing in the juniors tournament. Yeah, it should be fun. I know San Jose is starting to get a little better this year. With their number one pick, I forget his name, but yeah, I'll take a look at the highlights. See, well, yeah, I'm sure it's very exciting. A lot of prospects for sure. So, well, everybody, with that being said, man, I'm going to take off. I want everybody to have a great weekend, and whatever happens with the Bucks, win or lose, it's whatever for me. Oh yeah, Celebrini, Sharks play. That's got it, and he's played pretty good so far. That was a good pickup by San Jose, definitely. But anyway, guys, have a great weekend. I will see you next time right here on Have At It. Take care and go Bucks, I guess.